Hi, Achievers. I hope you guys are well good and are well kept. This is Miss T, your maths tutor. Okay, so if you're new to this channel, please like, subscribe, and share. This is a channel whereby we'll be doing our grade 12 revision. And for this season, we'll be starting with the May-June 2022. And for this video, I'm only going to concentrate on question 1, the May-June 2022. Please remember that due to availability time, we won't be going live as promised, but we'll be going live every Friday at 7 p.m. And just to have a Q&A of what you don't understand or what you need clarity with. So please DM me. You can find us on our socials or on TikTok as Miss T, the Jesus Girl. So yeah, so let's get started. So for question 1, the things that you need to know or revise on is factorizing and solving the quadratics. And quadratic formula, you must know it by heart. Know how to do your inequalities, how to solve your exponential equations, dive deep into the law of exponents and how to simplify them. You need to be able to solve the algebraic functions and to solve the equations using simultaneous equations. So question 1, so those are the questions for the paper, which I'm going to just use scaffolding and just solve them bit by bit. So the first question is question 1, whereby we will be talking, you are required to solve for x. So the first one, it's 1.1.1, whereby we have x squared plus 2x minus 15, which is equals to 0. So you're going to solve this quadratic using factorizing. You need to practice your factorizing, and you need to be able to solve your equations using the factor pairs. Then after that, you then check for solutions by substitution, which it's another stage that you can do just to verify if your answers are right. So you can do it not on the paper, but you do it on the side. Okay. So if I'm factorizing using pairs, I'm going to have 2 open brackets. Right? So I already know that in each and every bracket, I must have x and x. So now I'm going to question myself, what are the 2 numbers that when I multiply them, I'm going to get negative 15, and when I add them or subtract them, I'm going to get positive 2. So remember, a negative times the negative is equals to a positive. A negative times a positive is equals to a negative. A positive times a negative is equals to a negative. A positive times a positive is equals to a positive. Okay, so I'm going to look for 15. 2 numbers that I can multiply. So the best thing I can do here is looking for the factors of 15. Okay, which are 1, 3, 5, and 15. All right, so I'm going to ask myself, can I take 1 and 15? No, because when I add 1 and 15, I'm going to get 16. When I subtract 1 and 15, I'm going to get a positive 14 or a negative 14. So in this case, I can't. But when I add a 3, I multiply 3 and 5, I'm going to get a negative, but a 15. But when I have minus a negative, when I minus the both or add the both, it depends which one has its value. So I can get a positive 2 if I minus 5 from 3. So in this case, I'm going to have a negative and a positive. So if I minus 3 from 5, right, that means I'm going to get a positive 2. So that's how we get it. So we're going to have x plus 5 is equals to 0. where x, I'm going to transpose the 5 to have x to be the subject of the formula. So I'm going to have a -5 as my answer, or I'm going to have x minus 3, which is equals to 0, whereby I'm going to transpose my x. And remember, when you transpose a positive into the other side, it becomes a negative. And when you transpose a negative into the other side, it becomes a positive. Okay. All right. So that is your 1.1.1. Let's go to 1.1.2. So this here, please be careful. Leave your answer in two decimal forms, correct ones. So normally when they say this, to me, what raises the eyebrows is that indeed I'm going to use a quadratic formula, right? Because most of the time, the quadratic formula is the one that allows us to have decimals. Yes, even that the pair ones will actually give us a fraction. Looking and observing at this question. So math also, it's about observing. You have to be observant. So remember, the quadratic, it's ax squared plus bx plus c is equals to 0. So in this case, we are given 5x squared minus x minus 9 is equals to 0. So the first thing first, you need to label your a, your b, and your c. So in this case, our a is positive 5, our b is -1, because there's an invisible 1 here as a constant. So b is not just 1, but -1. So it goes along with the sign next to it, the sign before it, all right? And 9c is -9. So now we are going to plot them back, where we have x is equals to -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, so now, okay, so you are now going to substitute. So we have negative b. What is our b? Is -1. Always, whenever you have a negative number, put it in brackets so that whatever sign that is outside can be multiplied inside, so that you don't forget that. Okay, plus or minus the square root of b, which is -1, minus 4 times a, which is a is our 5, and our c is -1, 9. Okay, which is 2 times a, which is 5. So in this case, x is now +1, because negative times negative is 1, plus or minus the square root of -1 squared is 1, minus 4 times 5 times 9 is +180, all over 10. So now I'm going to look for x when we have 1 plus the square root of 180 plus 1, which is 181 over 10, or x when we have 1 minus the square root of 181 all over 10, right? So with this one, we're going to get 1,45. Remember, we were told to leave it in two decimal forms, right? And then the other one, we are going to get 1,25. Okay. So actually, let me just add how you're going to be marked. So according to the marking guidelines, you'll be marked for substituting the right thing, right? You'll be marked for the answers. Okay. So now let's go to other question. So the 1.1.3, the third question in question 1.1, that's your inequality. So your inequalities, have at the back of your mind that you're going to use a number line, right? Or a graph. So in this case, you're going to move all items. You're going to move all items on the other side, you transpose. So positive will become negative 3x greater than or less than or equals to 0. Okay, so because here, unlike the other equations we did up on top, we are going to factor out x, which is the common factor in this case, is we're going to have x minus 3, right? Okay, so from here, you are going, since you're going to look for the critical point. So this tells me that x is equals to 0 or x is equals to 3. Okay, all right. So now I am going to look for values, right, between 0 and 3, right? The y values when x is 0 until when x is 3, because here, in this case, that's because of this inequality, we can say that we can have x equals to 0 and x equals to 3. So now I'm going to write. Firstly, I'll draw a table so that I can draw my number line to test the interval. So it starts from 0, 1, 2, until 3. Okay. So when x is 0, I'm going to substitute it into this equation. So when x is 0, y is 0. When x is 1, I'm going to have 1 squared minus 3x minus 3 times 1, which is negative 2. When x is 2, I'm going to have 2 squared, which is 4, minus 3 times 2, which is 6. So it's 4 minus 6, which will give me negative 2. And here, when I substitute 3, I'm going to have 9 minus 9, which is 0. Okay? So remember, it's not up to scale. Okay, but I'm gonna try my best, to just at least make it nice and neat. Okay, so in this case, I'm gonna have 1, 2, 3, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, 1, 2, 3, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3. Okay, so we already know that we were told that out of the things we looked for, the values we looked for, when x is 0, y is 0. So this is the starting point. When x is 1, y is negative 2. When x is 2, y is negative 2. When x is 3, y is 0. Okay, so this is the graph. Okay, so after this, I can interpret that from this graph, right? My graph starts from 0 and it ends at 3. So meaning that for me to say this, I'm going to say x has to be greater than or equals to 0, and x has to be less than or equals to 3. Or I can say that x is an element of 0 and 3. So you can see. Look. Hi, how are you? I'm good. So the reason why we are using this is because we have a closed interval. But if we had maybe a less than only without an equals to sign, we were going to have an open interval, which is this kind of brackets. But whenever it's a closed interval, it tells you that our graph has to only range between 0 and 3. It does not have to, it can't be less than 0 or greater than 3. Okay. So 1.2 goes together with 1.2.1 and 1.2.2. So guys, if you get 1.2.1 wrong, right? If you get it wrong, just know that 1.2.2, you also get it wrong. So in this case, we're going to try by all means to make this what we are giving in a standard form, right? Because remember, we're still in question 1, so we are dealing with quadratics, right? So now to put it in a standard form, I'm going to eliminate the denominator, meaning that for a plus 64 over a equals to 16, I am going to multiply both sides by a. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to have a squared plus 64. Remember, a and a will cancel each other, and also it applies to laws of exponents, because when we divide bases of the same value, we're going to minus the exponent. So now I'm going to put them in a standard form, which is a squared minus 16a plus 64 equals to 0. So now, since it's in a standard form, I am going to look for a. So as we did with the first question, I'm going to look for two numbers that when I multiply them, I'm going to get a positive 64 and a negative 16. So this tells me I'm going to have a negative and a negative. So this, I can find the factors of 68, and also at the back of my mind, I know that, remember, 68 is a perfect square because I'm going to have two numbers multiplying each other, which is 8 and an 8, right? And I know that 8 minus negative 8 minus 8 will be negative 16. So in this case, your A is equals to positive 8, all right? So you'll be marked for putting this in a standard form, factorizing and finding your A, okay? So now 1.2.1, 0.2, by the way, if you get 1.2.1 wrong, 1.2.2 will be wrong, okay? So here I'm going to use the law of exponents. You have to revise, basis of this, when we multiply bases of the same value, we get the exponents. And also, when we divide bases of the same value, we minus the exponent, okay? So in this case, we have 2x to the power x plus 2 to the power 6 minus x, which is equals to 16. So now, this we already know is in result of the quotient law, right? So meaning that I am going to have so now we have 2x plus 2 to the power 6 over 2 to 2, 2 to the power x equals to 16. So I already know that 2 to the power 6 will give us 64. So now, referring back to the last question, we can see that this is in a form as the last question. So meaning that we are saying in replacement of 8, they placed 2 to the power x. So now we're going to have 2 to the power x be equals to 8, right? So now I would now look forward to seeing both sides having a same base, right? So I know that 8 is a product of 2 to the power 3, okay? So now I'm going to cancel both sides, both the bases, and I'm going to be left with x is equals to 3. Or you can use the method with the calculator, log base A, which in this case will be log 2, 8, which will give you the same answer, okay? So now 1.3, so in 1.3, you have to factor out and you need to apply your exponential rules, right? For both the numerator and the denominator, okay? So with this one, what we have is the square root of 2 to the power 1002 plus 2 to the power 1006 over 17 times 2, that 2 to the power 998. So here I'm going to factor out the common factor. I'm going to start by factoring it on the denominator. All right. We are going to factor out the common factor. So in this case, we are also going to factor out especially using the product rule, right? So in this case, I'm going to factor out 2 to the power 0, 1002 times into 1 plus 2 to the power 4. So in this case, if I multiply back in the brackets, I'm going to get 2 to the power 1002, and I'm going to add both the exponent. I'm going to add 1002 plus 4. So it's going to be 2 to the power 6. So I'm going to have 17 times 2 to the power 998. So now I'm going to use another law, which is the quotient law, to say when bases are the same, when we divide bases of the same value, we minus the exponent. So I'm going to have 2 to the power 1002 minus 998 into, so I'm going to also solve what is inside the bracket, which is 2 to the power 4, which is 16 over 17. So now I'm going to be left with 2 to the power 4 times 17 divided by 17. Okay, the 17 will minus each other. So now I'll be left with the square root of 2 to the power 4. So remember, the root law says when I have an nth root of x, for me to take out the root, I'm going to have x to the power 1 over n, right? So in this case, we are going to have, remember there's an invisible 2 here. So we're going to have 2 to the power 4 all to the power 1 over 2. So now here, we are going to use the power of a product, if I remember well here. So now we're going to have 2 to the power 4 over 2, which is 2 to the power 2, which is 4. So this is your final answer. So you're going to get marked for factoring out the common factor and the other common factor in the final part. Okay. And also, let me check. Yeah, and also for simplifying so that you can get your 4 marks. Okay. So now let's come to the one of simultaneous. So with simultaneous equation, first thing first, label your equations. So I have 2x minus y equals to 2. I'll label it as equation 1, and I have 1 over x minus 3y equals to 1. I will label it as equation 2, right? So now this says to me, so the other trick when you start is that look for that one variable in one equation that its constant is 1. Then that variable, when you get it, you make it the subject of the formula. So in this case, here on equation 1, y has a variable 1, so I'm going to use it. So I'm going to have y is equals to 2x minus 2. Make it the subject of the formula. So now I'm going to substitute y into equation 2, right? So after that, after I substitute it, I'm going to have 1 over x. Where there's y, I'm going to substitute by 2x minus 2. So now I have a common variable. So now I'm going to expand it. right? And after expanding it, I'm going to have a negative 6x plus 6 is equals to 1. So now I can make it on the standard form by eliminating the denominator. So I'm going to multiply both sides by x. Okay, so I'm going to have 1 minus 6x squared plus 6x equals to x. So now I'm going to put it in a standard form. Just write it on the side. So it's going to be negative 6x squared, 6 minus 5, 1. So it's going to be plus 5x plus 1 equals to 0. So another thing is that your a always has to be positive. So I'm going to multiply both sides by a negative. So I'm going to have 6x squared minus 5x minus 1 equals to 0. So with this one, you can use the quadratic formula or factorizing using this. I'm going to have a 6x here and an x. Then I'm going to check what is that. What is the signs that I'm going to use to get a positive, to get a negative 5 and a negative 1. So in this case, I'm going to use positive and a negative. Then I'm going to ask myself, what is the two numbers that I can multiply by itself to get 1? It's actually 1, right? So don't worry about 5 because you're going to have 6x minus x. Negative 6x plus x, or 6 negative, or 6x minus x. So yeah. But in this case, you must have negative 6x plus x to get a negative 5. So in this case, I'm going to have 6x plus 1 is equals to 0, or x minus 1 equals to 0. So x will be equals to 1, negative 1 over 6. I'm going to transpose, and x in this case will be equals to 1. So now I'm going to sub my x into y, right? Which is equals to 2x minus 2. So when x, I'm going to take it when x is equals to negative 1 over 6. That means I'm going to have y to be where there's x, I'm going to put negative 1 over 6 minus 2, which in this case, I'm going to get negative 2 over 6. Now, which will be negative 1 over 3. So I'm going to have negative 1 over 3 minus 2. I'm going to have negative 7 over 3. Now, when x is equals to 1, y will be equals to 2 times 1 minus 2, which is 0, okay? So that's what we have. So for 5 marks, you're going to get a mark for putting y as the subject of the formula, and then putting your x in a standard form, finding your x values, substituting your x to get y values. Right. So that's it from me. The next video to come, please expect a question 2 where we will be dwelling on the question 2 of the May-June 2022. Cheers, guys. Thank you for watching. If you're new here, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Cheers. Bye.